How's it going, guys? Biker Mike here. This video is going to be on how to make sure your brand new dirt bike is properly lubed up at the linkages, swing arm, and the steering bearings. Now, I bought this bike last fall. It's wintertime now, and I've got maybe 4 or 5 hours on it. Should have probably done this right away, but I was just anxious to get on it and ride it. It's a 2017 KTM XC250, and yeah, I'm just going to be showing you guys what I like to do to my new bikes when I get them, just to prolong the bearing life of all the bearings and all the pivot points. First thing I'm going to be doing is taking the front wheel off, sliding the fork tubes in. So let's just get right at it. Okay, so on this particular bike, you want to loosen off these two 10mm pinch bolts, and then take this nut out, which is a 17mm. And then you want to loosen off the other side. These are 10mm bolts. And then your axle should be able to slide straight out. And your front wheel should come off. So the next thing I'm gonna do is remove the brake caliper, and I'll probably take the brake line off the fork guard, and I'll probably take the fender off too. So 10mm bolt for the brake caliper. And there's 2 of those. And then a 6mm and just gonna lower the bike down a bit. And we got a 8mm on the fender bolts. Two more underneath. So now we can take the forks off. These are 10mm pinch bolts. You just don't want to loosen them right off and then have the fork drop down, so just hold on to the fork to make sure it doesn't fall right off the bike and nick up your fork tube. And it just slides right down. Store them in a safe spot where they're not going to fall over. And same with the right side. Okay, so I'm going to lower the bike down even more now. And we're going to take the handlebar pad off and then the handlebars. So real simple. looks like a 10mm bolt for the handlebars. Now, I'm gonna make note of where they are in the adjustment so I can return it to the same spot. So we'll go ahead and remove those. Carefully lean those out of the way. It looks like I'm gonna have to loosen off this pinch bolt before I can take this stem off. So that's another 10mm bolt on that. And then we got a 17mm, and that was actually really loose. It's probably a good thing I'm doing this. Top triple clamp should come off. Just want to be careful of where I store that because it's got the hour meter wire still attached to it. And I'm going to drop the lower triple clamp down. And there you go, guys. Not a whole lot of grease on there, so I'm going to be packing that all full of grease, and I'll show you how to do that. Just going to make note that there's an O-ring on top of this washer plate here. Set the triple clamp aside and just pop that straight off. And we'll take this bearing out, and you can see there's really not a whole lot of grease in there, but it is greased. But I'm just gonna make sure there's lots of grease. So like I said, I already had 3 hours on this bike, so you just need to be aware that there could be some dirt in here around the edge here, so you got to be careful you don't get any inside. But I'm gonna clean all that up and re-grease the bearing and assemble it all back together. Okay, so I got the top and the bottom bearing races all wiped out nice and clean. Okay, so we got the upper needle taper bearing ready to be all lubed up. So I've got some multi-purpose wheel bearing and chassis grease that I've had kicking around the shop here, and you can use there's probably better greases out there, but this is what I have in the shop, so this is what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to scoop some out of there and put it into the palm of my hand, just like that. And then we're just going to press the back side of this bearing into the grease and just keep doing that till you see it start to ooze out around right in here. You can see it's all full of grease in there and working its way out. So I'm just going to keep working the bearing into that grease until it does that all the way around the whole bearing. Okay, and that's it. It's all full of grease now, and the top one's ready to go back in. I'm going to move on to the bottom one here. Now this is going to be a little bit more tricky because I'm not going to take it off the steering stem. So I'm just going to pack it in around the top here and just try and get as much grease in there as I can. Okay guys, you can tell once you get enough grease in there by how it feels when you turn the bearing around. So now I'm just going to give that a wipe off with a paper towel, and it should be ready to go back on the bike. Alright, so I'm just going to wipe a little bit of grease around on the inner race here, or I guess that's the outer bearing race.
Scoop a little bit more in there.
And do the bottom one too. Okay, so we're ready to install the lower triple clamp. Okay, so my memory card kind of got full there, so I wasn't able to record the whole reassembly process, but I'll just give you a rundown because this is going to be different on different bikes, obviously. But on this KTM, basically I just slid the steering stem back up through and put the top triple clamp on and tighten this up to the specified torque, and then tighten that up to the specified torque. Then I put my forks in, tightened up the pinch bolts to the specified torque settings, and put the wheel back on, the fender, the number plate, blah blah blah, all to the torque specs on that. Okay, you can see I've got the linkage out of it already. Now I've already re-greased this, so I just thought I'd show you guys. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is just work some grease into that needle bearing in there with your finger. There's not that much in there from the factory, so just gonna use my all-purpose grease and just kind of work it in there with my finger. Hopefully you can see that. So it's actually taken quite a bit more grease. So you just want to do that to all the needle bearings in the linkage and pop the seals back in, and we'll be on to the swing arm pivot next. Okay, so I've dropped the swing arm down. Okay, so that side's all re-greased too. Now, just wanted to make note, be aware that those little roller bearings can pop out of there, so just make sure they're all back into their cages, and you've got adequate grease in there. Okay, so in order to get this off, I found it easier just to remove the whole braking system. That allows you to pull this bolt out and get that part off a lot easier. So anyways, it's all re-greased and ready to go back together. So that pretty much does it for the lube job of my new bike. One other thing you could do is the upper shock bushings up there. I haven't got to them yet, but I'm gonna do them. Just wanted to show you how much grease those roller bearings can take on a new bike. So hopefully you guys liked that video, found it helpful. If you got any comments, leave them down below. If you like the video, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button. That's the most important thing I need these days, is more subscribers. So if you appreciated the video, hit the subscribe button, because I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Biker Mike out.